Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Gear Time here with Nick Hadit. And we are talking drones.
Yep.
And of course, you have your FAA certification.
Yeah, the Part 107 license, I do have that.
How is that it's so difficult for people to get, or people just don't, or they think it's daunting? Is it really that difficult to get the certification?
So for me, I had been studying and kind of putting it off actually taking the test for a couple of years. And so when I really I finally need to do this, it was a solid week's worth of studying. Now I passed but missed like one question on the test, which maybe I could have not studied quite as much. But you just need to go back to your high school days and remember how to study and take some practice tests. And if you can do that, I don't think it's too bad.
It was a long time ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
For most of it.
Gives me a little anxiety just thinking about taking an exam of any kind.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn here. And early on, is it fair to say there were a lot of hobbyists, that the rules have changed, or maybe the rules haven't changed, but enforcement has changed?
No, the rules have absolutely changed.
Okay.
I mean, not necessarily a ton recently, but yeah, somewhere 2017, 18 is when I think the Part 107 guidelines came out.
Sure.
And that changed it a lot. But before then, when, the first Phantoms were coming out with GoPros mounted to them, it was kind of the Wild West.
To clarify what maybe could be some misinformation or a misunderstanding, is there such a thing as a hobbyist? In other words, if you had a drone that was under a certain weight and could only fly so high, let's say you buy one for your son,
Yeah.
and he's flying out in the school parking lot and it doesn't have a camera on it. Is there anything that qualifies as a hobbyist?
I'll be honest, I have no idea on that. I do know that under 250 grams, you don't have to register it.
Okay.
So I think this is a Mini 4 over here. Right. I'm pretty sure that's under 250 grams. And that means you don't need to register it, but you still, if you're flying it commercially, you still need to have your license. And if you're still not allowed to fly that in any sort of no-fly zone.
Sure. And when you say register, you mean with the FAA?
Yeah. So all of these, if you're flying them, I think full stop, whether professionally or not, you should have your ID number printed on the top of that. That's visible.
Sure. It's the license plate.
Yes.
Okay, so I brought these out for comic effect because there was an era where crew members were crashing a lot of drones. Nothing is a throwaway piece of equipment,
Yeah.
but some of these are under $1,000, and it's a shame, but they're not worth fixing.
No, it's cheaper just to buy a new one than it would be to ship it back to whatever DJI repair facility and
Sure.
get it.
But the problem you run into is here we have a $100 case.
Yeah.
And then look at what I have here. You've got 4 or 5 extra batteries. You've got the controller.
Yeah.
What do you do with all this? If you've wrecked I think this matches this. I think this one, whichever this one is, this is the Mavic.
This is an Air.
Mavic Air.
A Mavic Air 2 maybe. Yeah, so I think one of the frustrating things in the DJI ecosystem is that almost none of the drones, they don't reuse the same batteries as the old models. So the Mavic Air 2 and the Mavic Air 2S use the same battery, but that's a different battery than the Mavic Air 1 or the Air 3.
And why would they do that?
Because the battery is like part of the structure of the drone almost. It's
Sure.
part of the body. So, I understand why, but it is frustrating that you buy a new drone and now you have all these batteries that you spent a few $100 extra on.
The market's probably flooded with extra batteries and controllers or
And some of the controllers you can move between drones, but again, it's very segmented. Like that controller or work with these 4 drones, and then in the future they're going to replace it with a new controller that's only compatible with drones of that era.
So to clarify, if you don't have the 107, the certification,
Yeah.
there's no place on the planet, or at least in the United States, where you can legally fly. Now, you get out in the country or...
No, you can fly recreationally.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So you can fly recreationally. You cannot do it commercially.
Okay.
And then there's certain no-fly zones around airports and national parks and stuff like that. And there's a app you can get for your phone to use a service called Blank. I used Air Control, but there's I think half a dozen others where you can get permission on the fly to fly in those no-fly zones. So,
Sure.
There's little circles, and it'll be marked on the map whether you can get a permission up to 200 feet or 100 feet or 400 feet. And you can do that either as a Part 107 for a commercial project, or you can also do that recreationally, and you could still use that length to fly recreationally.
You've described in special cases where clients would say, we want to get this shot, but it's near an airport
Yeah.
in a zone that's questionable. Now, you were showing me on the map here that there's a zone 0 means no fly.
Yeah, so if you're in one of those zone zeros, if you wanted to try and fly there, you're going to need to go through the FAA's website. I believe it's called FAA Drone Zone, and fill out a request for a waiver, an authorization, and they're going to ask you questions about, exactly where you're flying at, latitude and longitude, how high you want to fly, a justification for how you can do that mission safely, and then it's going to take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks for them to get back to you with either approving it or denying it. Versus the length that you can do on your phone in one of those areas that is not 0 feet, you can do that on your phone and get instant approval.
These drones, at least the ones that are newer, have a chip in them,
A remote ID.
remote ID. So the remote ID, so let's say that this DJI Mavic is 6 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
It does not have remote ID.
Again, through the FAA's website, they have a list of drones that have that remote ID chip, or you could also check on DJI's website. I'm sure you could find that information. But based on the era of that drone and how old it is, I would strongly suspect that it does not have a remote ID chip.
And the remote ID tells air traffic controllers the moment you turn it on, it shows up on their radar.
Immediately pinging out your location. So anyone who has the capability to receive those signals, I would assume any air traffic controller would be able to see where you're at.
Does that apply only if you're near an airport, or if you're out in the middle of nowhere, it would be possible for them to see the remote ID on their radar screen?
And so I don't know how far away that they can see that signal, but you are required to have remote ID regardless of where you're flying. There are FRIA zones, I think that's what they're called, where you are allowed to fly without remote ID. And those are typically areas that are set up by like hobbyists who are doing like hobby airplanes or remote RC, that kind of stuff. And I believe if you had an area like a park near your house, you could petition the FAA to make that an FRIA zone. And in those areas, you are allowed to fly without remote ID. But whether you're flying professionally or hobbyist, you need to have remote ID regardless of where you're flying, as long as you're outside of one of those FRIA zones.
With this certification, did they demand or insist or require that you have insurance? Or how does that work? It's not like with a car, the state of Ohio, you have to have insurance.
Unless there's something that's changed since I got my license, no, you do not need to have insurance.
Probably should.
Probably.
Yeah, liability insurance,
Yeah.
these things. You said something interesting too. Under no circumstances can you fly over a crowd.
So that is not 100% true. You can fly over a crowd. There are category 1, 2, 3, and 4 drones. And if you ask me exactly what each of those categories are, I will not be able to tell you. But a category 1 drone, you would be able to fly over a crowd. There's a certain weight limit that I believe is 250 grams. And it also has to have prop guards on. And with the prop guards, it needs to be under 250 grams. So this Mini 4 over here, I believe without anything on it, it weighs 249 grams. And so if you add those prop guards to it, you're over the limit and it's no longer considered a category 1 drone. So it's very limited in terms of the drones that would qualify for that. There is category 2 drones, which again, I think, once you put the prop guards, that's what that would fall under. And then I think they want there to be some sort of parachute system on it or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. Generally, don't fly over crowds unless you're under 250 grams with prop guards on.
The props can cause injury. They
No,
can
100%. Yeah, lacerations. And there's, again, with the category 1, 2, 3, and 4, there's certain like Newton meters of force that the drone is allowed to impart on a bystander. And yeah, so that's how they break that up. Yeah, I don't know the exact details off the top of my head, but don't fly over a crowd is probably just a good idea.
Well, and just to throw this in there, flying, even as an amateur or hobbyist, flying them without certification in a commercial sense is a terrible idea.
Yeah, you're not allowed to fly. If you don't have your Part 107, you should not be flying commercially. Um, and the fines that you can get are pretty high. So I recommend not doing that. And there also is a test that you need to take just to fly as a hobbyist. I believe it's called TRUST, which is a acronym for something. But that's a pretty easy test. I think you can do it online in about 10 minutes. And I think you need to get 100% of the answers correct on it, but they'll just tell you which ones you missed and make you re-answer them. So it's pretty easy to get that certificate, but you should have that certificate whether you're flying as a hobbyist or a professional.
Sure. The other thing is, they've gotten a little easier to operate, but it still takes some skill and practice. And, I've seen some lousy drone video.
Yeah. The drones, especially the DJI ones, are great at they get their GPS signal, and I think they also connect to GLONASS, and they're great at hovering in place. And even with relatively strong winds, they'll hold where they're at. So that really allows you to focus on getting the shot that you want without having to make sure that the drone isn't falling out of the sky. Now, obviously, you need some sort of situational awareness of where you're at to make sure you're not crashing into trees or buildings or stuff like that. But yeah, between the obstacle avoidance sensors and the GPS and stuff like that, honestly, I found it pretty hard to crash a drone, one of these DJIs, but to actually get nice looking shots, that's a skill that you need to learn.
Sure. And you can switch it off so that it takes away. You can turn off some of those safety features.
Oh yeah.
I had the situation where we wanted to fly out a window.
Yeah.
And it flew out the window and went and did all these shots. And then as it approached the building, it stopped. It wouldn't go back in through the window.
Yeah.
And you had to turn off some safety. I don't know. This is why you're the expert. No,
Yeah,
not.
so
You had
on
to hit
on
a
the
switch.
obstacle avoidance, there's
Obstacle avoidance.
there's an
There we go.
option for brake, which it stops. There's another option where it'll try to fly around it. I don't remember exactly what that's called in the menu. And then there's an option where you just turn it off, and then it's going to let you crash into a wall if you wanted to.
Some of these are programmable so that you ever done this where I've seen incredible, and we've had client requests, of course, the drone goes into the building or into the restaurant and through the kitchen and then out to show a venue, and just the whole video is a 60-second, just one continuous shot.
So those types of shots are done with FPV drones, and I have not flown it.
What kind of drone?
FPV, first person view drone.
Okay.
And so those are definitely takes a lot more skill to fly those. Those are not hovering in place.
Right. You're programming the shot though.
No, I don't. No.
Those are
people doing that.
okay.
Oh, 100%. And there's a lot more skill that goes into flying those.
Certainly, I would think so. All right. What have I left out? What's the overall thing we should talk about? Especially, we get calls all the time, and the idea of, can you just go get this shot? Can you? And it's to explain to people, maybe they wouldn't watch this entire segment, but to educate the person that's buying video production services. Says, okay, can you bring a drone? Can we just do a drone shot? And it's, to what level do you explain to the client, these are the rules? And what do you do with the client? Says, well, can you just, is it going to, those people.
I'm not going to bend the rules because that fine is coming back on me. And so if I'm receiving a $10,000 or $20,000 fine for flying that drone in a no-fly zone, is the client paying for that? I bet they wouldn't. So I'm going to inform them of what I am and am not able to do legally. And if they want to try and find someone who will do it outside those rules, that's on them, but I'm not doing that.
Of course, and as it should be. All right, Nick Hayden has joined us, as always, here on Gear Time to educate and help us understand a lot of technology. A lot of the video business changes fast.
As it does.
And we love it, and we like to stay on top of it. And that's one of the reasons of many that we do this segment here at Gear Time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.